There is a small, dark seed that Caribbean men have been adding to drinks for over 400 years. Not because they read about it in a study, not because a doctor prescribed it, but because generation after generation of men in those islands noticed something undeniable. They stayed strong in the bedroom well into their 70s. Their grandfathers were still virile men. Their uncles never talked about the problem that millions of men in the rest of the world whisper about in shame. And for centuries, nobody in mainstream medicine paid attention. Until now. Because what researchers recently discovered about this seed, and specifically what happens when you combine it with celery juice, is something that changes everything we thought we understood about blood flow, erections, and what is actually possible for men over 60. I'm not talking about a small improvement. I'm not talking about something you might feel after 3 months if you're lucky. I'm talking about a synergistic reaction inside your blood vessels that operates on 3 separate pathways simultaneously. Something neither celery juice nor the seed can trigger alone. Something that only happens when these 2 specific things meet in your bloodstream at the same time. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what this seed is, why it works, how to combine it correctly, and what you can reasonably expect to feel, and when. But before I do, I want you to do one thing. Hit the subscribe button right now and tap the notification bell. This channel, Vital Health Seniors, exists for one reason only, to bring you real, science-backed information about men's health that your doctor may never have time to share with you. Every single week. No supplements to sell or agenda. Just the truth about what your body is capable of, even now. I'm Dr. Mei Anderson. I'm a urologist, and for over 20 years I have specialized exclusively in the sexual health and vitality of men over 60. I have sat across from thousands of men in my clinic. I have watched them walk in with their eyes down, their voices low, carrying a weight that most of them have never told another living soul. And I have watched those same men walk out weeks later standing taller, breathing easier, and feeling something they thought was permanently gone. That is why I made this video. And that is why I need you to watch it all the way through, because the part that most men miss, the part that makes this combination actually work, is not what I'm going to share first. It builds. Stay with me. Type the number 1 in the comments right now if restoring firm, reliable blood flow matters to you. I read every single comment on this channel. Every one. Now I want to talk to you honestly for a moment. Not as a doctor reading from a clipboard. As someone who has spent 2 decades watching men suffer in silence over something that should never have been silent to begin with. You probably found celery juice somewhere along the way. Maybe a friend mentioned it. Maybe you read about it. Maybe you committed to it for weeks or months, waking up every morning, going through the effort, drinking that pale green liquid and telling yourself that change was coming. And maybe something small shifted. A little more energy here. Slightly better circulation there. But down there, where it mattered most, the change you were praying for never really arrived. The firmness you remembered didn't come back the way you needed. The spontaneous strength that used to wake you up in the morning stayed quiet. And so you started wondering, is it too late for me? Has my body already crossed some invisible line that I can't come back from? Am I just going to have to accept this? I need you to hear me clearly when I say this. The answer is no. Not because I'm trying to make you feel better. Because the science tells a very specific story about why celery juice alone was never going to be enough, and what was missing from the equation the entire time. But before I get there, I need you to understand something deeper. Because this isn't just about erections. I've been doing this long enough to know that. When a man loses reliable blood flow and sexual function, he doesn't just lose a physical experience. He loses something much harder to measure. He starts avoiding the woman he loves because he's afraid of failing her again. He stops reaching for her hand in the dark because he doesn't trust his own body anymore. He lies awake next to the person who has stood beside him through decades of life, and the silence between them grows heavier every night. He stops feeling like himself. Not just in the bedroom, everywhere. In how he carries himself. In how he speaks. In whether he feels like he still has something to offer the world. I have held the hands of men who were crying in my office. Strong men. Men who had built businesses, raised families, served their countries. crying because they felt like a part of them had been erased. And what I want you to understand today is that for most of those men, the problem was never permanent. The machinery was never broken. It was simply starved of what it needed to function. And one of those things, one of the most critical things, was sitting in the Caribbean all along, waiting for someone to pay attention. So let me explain to you exactly what's happening inside your body, because this is where most videos skip past the truth, and I'm not going to do that. When an erection happens, it is not magic. It is hydraulics. Blood must rush into the spongy chambers of the penis with enough force and volume to create rigidity and hold it there. For that to happen, your blood vessels must open wide. They must dilate. And the molecule that causes that dilation is called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is produced in the inner lining of your blood vessel walls, cells called endothelial cells. When nitric oxide is released, it sends a chemical signal to the surrounding smooth muscle telling it to relax. When those muscles relax, the vessel expands. Blood rushes in. That is how an erection is born. Now here is the part that changes everything for men over 60. After decades of inflammation, stress, processed foods, poor sleep, and the natural aging of blood vessel tissue, your endothelial cells begin to lose their ability to produce nitric oxide efficiently. It is not dramatic. It does not happen overnight. It is a slow, quiet erosion that starts in your 40s and accelerates with every passing year. By the time most men reach 65 or 70, their nitric oxide production can be 40 to 60% lower than it was in their prime. That is not old age. That is chemistry. And celery juice addresses part of this problem. Celery is genuinely rich in natural dietary nitrates. When you drink celery juice, those nitrates are converted, first by bacteria on your tongue, then by stomach acid, into nitrites and finally into nitric oxide. This bypasses the endothelial pathway that has been damaged by age. It is a back door into nitric oxide production that does not depend on healthy blood vessel lining. That is real. That is documented. That is why men feel something when they drink it consistently. But here is the problem that nobody is talking about. Nitric oxide is extraordinarily fragile. The moment it is produced, it begins to be destroyed. There are enzymes in your body, called phosphodiesterase enzymes, specifically PDE5, whose entire job is to break down the chemical signals that cause blood vessel relaxation. Every time your body produces nitric oxide, PDE5 is already working to eliminate it. In a young man, production outpaces destruction. The system stays in balance. Vessels stay responsive. Blood flows freely. In a man over 60, production has already declined, and PDE5 activity has not slowed down to compensate. The result is that even when celery juice successfully generates nitric oxide through the dietary nitrate pathway, much of that nitric oxide is being dismantled before it can fully reach the penile tissue that needs it. You are filling a bucket with a hole in the bottom, and there are two other enemies at work simultaneously. The first is blood viscosity. Thick, sluggish blood does not surge. It creeps. Even when blood vessels are dilated, if your blood itself is thick and resistant to movement, the flood of circulation required for a firm erection simply cannot happen fast enough. Celery juice does almost nothing to address blood viscosity. The second enemy is cortisol, the chronic stress hormone that most men over 60 are carrying in elevated quantities without even realizing it. Cortisol directly suppresses testosterone. And testosterone is not just about desire. Testosterone is what primes the body to respond to nitric oxide signals in the first place. High cortisol means your blood vessels become less sensitive to the signals telling them to open. Celery juice does nothing to address cortisol. So you have three separate problems. Insufficient nitric oxide production. Rapid destruction of the nitric oxide that is produced. Thick blood that cannot surge even when vessels are open. And cortisol blocking the testosterone response that amplifies everything. Celery juice handles one of these four problems. The Caribbean seed handles the other three. And when you combine them, when you give your body all four solutions simultaneously, something happens that researchers describe as a convergent amplification effect. Not additive. Multiplicative. The total benefit is dramatically larger than the sum of its parts. The seed I am talking about is Moringa. Specifically, the seed of the Moringa oleifera tree, a tree that has grown across the Caribbean islands, Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, and throughout the broader tropical world, for centuries beyond counting. In Jamaica they call it the miracle tree. In Trinidad they have added its leaves and seeds to teas and tonics for generations. In traditional Caribbean medicine, Moringa seeds have been given to older men specifically, as a vitality tonic. The understanding was cultural before it was scientific. Caribbean healers understood that something in this seed kept men strong in ways that other plants did not. Modern science has now confirmed exactly what that something is. Moringa seeds contain an extraordinary concentration of a compound called isothiocyanate, specifically moringin. This compound does something remarkable inside the human body. It directly stimulates the endothelial nitric oxide synthase enzyme, the very enzyme responsible for producing nitric oxide in blood vessel walls. But it does not stop there. Moringin also significantly inhibits PDE5, the enzyme that destroys nitric oxide. Let that land for a moment. Celery juice increases nitric oxide production through the dietary nitrate pathway. Moringa seed simultaneously increases nitric oxide production through the endothelial pathway and slows down the destruction of nitric oxide by inhibiting PDE5. You are producing more from two separate sources while losing less. The nitric oxide available to your penile tissue does not just increase linearly, it compounds. But Moringa seed does two more things that are critical for men over 60. First, it contains benzyl isothiocyanate, a compound with documented antiplatelet aggregation effects. This means it reduces excessive clumping of blood cells, making blood genuinely more fluid and free-moving. The thick, sluggish blood that was limiting your surge, Moringa seeds begin to thin it naturally, allowing blood to move through widened vessels with the kind of force and volume that actually fills penile tissue completely. Second, Moringa seeds contain significant concentrations of a flavonoid called quercetin, combined with a unique amino acid profile that directly suppresses cortisol production at the adrenal level. When cortisol comes down, testosterone sensitivity goes up. Blood vessels become more responsive. The whole system awakens in a coordinated way that no single supplement can replicate. For problems, for solutions, one seed combined with one juice, working simultaneously in your bloodstream while you sleep. I want you to write this down if you can. When you combine celery juice's dietary nitrate pathway with Moringa seeds' endothelial stimulation, PDE5 inhibition, blood viscosity reduction, and cortisol suppression, you create the most comprehensive natural blood flow support available to an older man outside of a prescription. And unlike a prescription, this combination addresses the root cause rather than temporarily borrowing performance from a body that hasn't been repaired. Now let me show you exactly how to do this correctly, because the ratio matters. The preparation matters. And there are two specific mistakes that will cancel most of the benefit before it ever reaches you. Here is the exact protocol I recommend based on both the published research and what I have seen work consistently with my own patients. For the celery juice, you want 4 to 5 large stalks of fresh celery, not celery powder, not celery supplements, not celery extract in a bottle. Fresh stalks. The nitrate concentration in fresh celery is dramatically higher than any processed form, and the bacterial conversion process that turns nitrates into nitrites depends on the natural mineral balance of fresh juice. Cold press or slow juice the celery if you have a juicer. If you are using a blender, blend with minimal water and strain through a fine mesh or cheesecloth. You want approximately 6 to 8 ounces of pure celery juice. For the Moringa seeds, you want 1 level teaspoon of ground Moringa seeds, not Moringa leaf powder, which is more commonly sold and has different properties. Moringa seed powder specifically. You can purchase whole dried Moringa seeds and grind them yourself in a small spice grinder, which I prefer because the compounds are more potent when freshly ground. Or you can purchase pre-ground Moringa seed powder from a reputable source. 1 level teaspoon. Not a heaping spoon. 1 level teaspoon. Add the Moringa seed powder to your freshly made celery juice. Stir vigorously for 30 to 45 seconds or briefly blend. The compounds in Morina seeds need to be fully suspended in the liquid, not sitting at the bottom. Drink immediately after mixing. Do not let it sit for more than 10 minutes. Now the 2 mistakes that kill the results. Mistake number 1. Do not use antibacterial mouthwash within 1 hour before or after drinking this combination. The bacteria on your tongue, particularly on the back portion, are essential for the first step of converting celery's nitrates into nitrites. Antibacterial mouthwash eliminates those bacteria. Without that first conversion step, the nitric oxide pathway from celery juice is dramatically reduced. Regular brushing with toothpaste is completely fine. Antiseptic rinses are not. Mistake number 2. Do not add sugar, honey, high-sugar fruit juice, or sweetened anything to this combination. A single spike in blood sugar from sweeteners triggers an insulin response that directly suppresses nitric oxide production and simultaneously activates the inflammatory pathways that damage endothelial cells. You would be undoing everything with 1 spoonful of sugar. If the taste is too intense for you, add a small squeeze of fresh lemon juice, which actually enhances nitric oxide conversion through its citric acid content, or a thin slice of cucumber blended in. Now timing. I recommend drinking this combination in the evening, approximately 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Here is why. Your body's most intensive testosterone production and vascular repair happens during deep sleep, specifically during the slow-wave sleep cycles that occur in the middle of the night. When you consume this combination in the evening, the Morina seed compounds and celery nitrates are actively circulating in your bloodstream during the hours when your body is already in repair mode. The PDE5 inhibition from Morina works throughout the night while your endothelial cells are regenerating. The blood viscosity reduction is happening while your circulation is in its natural overnight rhythm. You are aligning the action of this combination with the hours your body is already trying to heal. Men who drink this combination in the morning still experience benefits, but men who take it consistently in the evening before bed report significantly stronger results, specifically in terms of morning erections, which are the single best indicator that nighttime testosterone production and vascular function are genuinely improving. For the first 3 days, do not expect dramatic changes. Your blood vessels are beginning to respond, your PDE5 activity is beginning to be modulated, and your cortisol patterns are just starting to shift. What you may notice in the first week is subtler, slightly warmer sensations in your legs and lower body, possibly slightly deeper sleep, a small increase in morning energy that feels different from caffeine. These are real signals. Pay attention to them. They are your body beginning to respond. By days 8 through 14, most men begin to notice something more meaningful. Mornings feel different. There is a quality of readiness in the body upon waking that has been absent for years. Some men in this window report the return of spontaneous morning erections. Not necessarily strong at first, but present. Present matters enormously. It means the blood flow pathways are reopening. It means the signal is getting through. By the end of 30 days of consistent daily use, the men I have worked with who commit to this protocol describe changes that go beyond physical. The firmness during intimacy improves with a reliability they had stopped hoping for. The awareness of circulation in the pelvic area, a warmth, a fullness, a pressure, becomes noticeable throughout the day. Energy is steadier. Motivation is higher. And something harder to quantify, but unmistakable begins to shift in how they carry themselves. They reach for their partner again. They stop avoiding. They stop pretending to be tired. They start showing up. Now I want to address the question I know is sitting in the back of your mind right now, because I have been practicing medicine for over 20 years, and I know exactly what older men are thinking when they hear about something natural that claims to improve blood flow. You are thinking about the blue pill. You are thinking, why not just take that? It's proven. It works. Why go through all of this? And here is my honest answer as your doctor. Prescription PDE5 inhibitors work. I am not going to tell you otherwise. They are effective at temporarily increasing blood flow by blocking the same PDE5 enzyme that Morina seed addresses. But they do one thing, in one moment, through one mechanism, without repairing anything. They borrow performance from a body that is still deteriorating underneath. Every time you take one, The underlying endothelial damage continues. The viscosity problem continues. The cortisol problem continues. The nitric oxide deficit continues. You are treating the symptom while the disease progresses. What this combination does is different in nature, not just degree. It begins rebuilding the endothelial lining over time through consistent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory action. It progressively restores the body's own ability to produce nitric oxide without external help. It addresses blood viscosity so that when vessels do dilate, real volume surges through. It reduces the cortisol that is suppressing your entire hormonal response to begin with. Pillsboro. This combination repairs. And there is something else I want you to understand that your doctor may never say out loud. The men who depend entirely on prescription medication to perform often describe a growing psychological dependency that becomes its own problem. The anxiety about whether the pill will work, the planning, the timing, the side effects, the feeling that they cannot be spontaneous anymore. That intimacy has become a scheduled medical event rather than a natural expression of connection. Men who restore their own blood flow, naturally, progressively from the inside, describe something completely different. They describe the return of spontaneity, of confidence, of feeling like their body is on their side again rather than an obstacle to be managed. That is not a small thing. That is the difference between surviving intimacy and being alive inside it. I want to take a moment before we close to talk about something that most health videos never address, because I think it matters more than any compound or protocol I have shared with you today. The men who come into my clinic carrying this struggle almost never talk about the physical part first. They talk about their partner. They talk about the look they have seen in her eyes. They talk about the distance that has grown between two people who love each other and don't know how to close it. They talk about the guilt of feeling like they are failing the woman who has stayed beside them through everything. Children, hardship, sickness, decades of ordinary and extraordinary life. And what I want to say to you, directly and honestly, is this. You are not failing her. You are not less of a man. You are not broken and you are not finished. What you are is a man whose biology has drifted out of the conditions it needs to function. And biology, unlike character, can be corrected. I have watched men in their mid-70s, men who walked into my clinic convinced the chapter was closed, walk back into intimacy with their wives within 30 to 45 days of addressing these root pathways. Not because of a miracle, because their body was still capable. It had simply been starved of what it needed for so long that it had gone quiet. Your body has not given up on you. It is waiting for you to give it what it has been asking for. And tonight, not next week, not when you feel ready, tonight, you can take the first step. One evening, one combination, 1 spoon of morina seed in a glass of fresh celery juice 60 minutes before you sleep. That is where it starts. Not with a dramatic decision or a perfect plan. With one small, deliberate act that tells your body, I am still fighting for you. 30 days from now you could be waking up differently, feeling differently, reaching for the woman you love without the weight of fear and avoidance, moving through your days with an energy and a groundedness that you have been missing for longer than you probably realize. That is not a fantasy. That is what becomes possible when you stop accepting decline as destiny and start addressing the chemistry that has been drifting out of balance. Your blood vessels still respond. Your cells still listen. Your body still remembers how to do this. It simply needs the right conditions, and now you know how to create them. Before you go, I want to ask you for 3 things. Not because they help me, although they do allow this channel to reach more men who need this information, but because each of them is a way of fighting for something real. First, hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second and it tells YouTube that this content matters, which means it gets shown to more men who are struggling in silence and have never heard that things can change. Second, leave a comment. Tell me how long you have been dealing with this. Tell me what you have already tried. Tell me your age if you feel comfortable. Your words are not just data to me. They are a reminder of who I am making these videos for, and they may be the exact thing that gives another man watching the courage to try. Third, share this video with one man you care about. A friend, a brother, someone you know is carrying this quietly. You do not have to explain why you are sharing it. Just send it. Because the men who need this most are almost never the ones who will find it on their own. They are too ashamed to search for it. But if someone they trust puts it in front of them, that changes everything. Next week on Vital Health Seniors, I am going to show you the single mineral deficiency that over 80% of men over 60 are unknowingly living with. One that directly suppresses testosterone production at the cellular level and makes every blood flow intervention you try work at half capacity. If you are doing everything right and still not seeing the results you expect, this is almost certainly why. Subscribe so you do not miss it. I am Dr. Mei Anderson. This is Vital Health Seniors. And I want you to know, after 20 years of this work, after thousands of men and thousands of stories, I have never once met a man who was truly past the point of change. Not one. The body is more patient than we give it credit for, more resilient, more willing to heal than we believe when we are standing in the dark of our worst moments. You are not done. Your strength is not gone. Your best chapter with the person you love does not have to be behind you. Start tonight.